Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz journeyman, trumpeter, and arranger David Weiss. These days, he is consumed with performing in the jazz supergroup The Cookers, with legendary cats like Billy Harper, Cecil McBee, George Cable's Eddie Henderson, and the great Billy Hart. Over the course of our conversation, he delved into his life in New York City, how he started out in art school for photography and made his way to the horn and the land of jazz. He contemplated why he loves jazz, what his legacy might be, and a lot more surprises and stories. So please, dig it, my friends.
How you feeling, man?
Hey, man. Good. How are you?
Everything's good.
Hey, thank you for taking some time to talk with me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all.
Right on. Let me go ahead and dive right in here and ask, what has been going on with you lately?
Well, lots of things. First and foremost, of course, there's the Cookers. We were on tour in Europe for a good part of the summer, and next week we're going to be at Dizzy's at Jazz Lincoln Center in New York, and we're starting to make plans to make our next record.
Let me ask you about the success of the Cookers in the 2014 album, Time and Time Again. Was this something that kind of was surprising? It's been such a well-received album, or was it? Give me your thoughts on the band and how the evolution has been up to this point.
It's always hard to tell when a record's going to, for whatever reason, take off more than another one. Because so much of it has to, do with everything else but music. It's hard to know. Certainly these days where guys are like made stars, in 20 minutes, it seems, that method of slowly building your audience and slowly building the band up, to something is just not the way things seem to happen anymore. When we made this record, I certainly felt that there were a few tunes on there that were a little more accessible than past records, and it was a nice combination of compositions and playing, and a nice balance between the different types of compositions. I think maybe the record before that, which I also think is a wonderful record, maybe emphasized too much on the compositional skills and not enough about the group interplay or the soloing. And this record seemed to strike that perfect balance between some great writing and some great playing, and also people can hear how the band has grown, playing together for 7 years. It's just musically a perfect combination of stuff, and I guess enough people agreed. And a lot of it is just every once in a while it just takes one or two outlets or entities to decide like, hey, this one really works. And the people at iTunes seem to embrace it and give it that, the CD of the year and stuff, and that seems to be a lot about what's helping people, realize it. But, a lot of people have come to me and said, that this is a great record, it's the best record you guys have done, it's the best record I've heard in years, and there's been a lot of that, so I guess we did something right.
Yeah, absolutely, I'd say so. I want to go back to the lineage of your life here. You were born and raised in New York City.
Yes.
What kind of jazz did you see? What was your childhood like that fostered this love of jazz for you?
Wow, absolutely nothing. It came later. I was a rock and roll kid. I grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens. I didn't really fit the profile of maybe my childhood friends who were running around in denim jackets with sweatshirts underneath them and hoods coming out and emblems, patches on their denim jackets of Black Sabbath and Kiss and Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. But I did listen to that music. That was my first exposure, was rock and roll. The rock and roll slowly, I guess, turned into more progressive rock and roll, like King Crimson and Gentle Giant, and that progressed into like more European avant-garde rock bands. And then that progressed to fusion, and then that progressed to avant-garde jazz, and then finally more straight-ahead jazz. I went to art school originally, actually, for photography, and there I was still playing I played keyboards in a rock band in high school, and I played trumpet in the school, concert bands and things like that. So I played trumpet for a while, but I just didn't hear any music applied, and there's no trumpet in Led Zeppelin or any of that stuff. And but while in art school, the guys started turning me on to more avant-garde jazz. I started playing trumpet again, but basically pretty free. And I quit art school and I went to the creative music studio where all good little young avant-garde kids went there. And it was a great experience. George Lewis was there. Leo Smith was there. Wow, I can't even remember them all now. Wow, my mind's a bit of a blank. Frank Lowe and Philip Wilson. And, people like that. Carl Berger ran the program. But Jimmy Jufrey lived up there. And he would come in once a week. And let's say, while he was a very open musician, he was also very grounded in the tradition. And he took me aside and said, you seem to have very good instincts and, very good conception, but, you should probably check out, I don't know, theory and harmony, and, get a little more grounded in your knowledge of music. And also create a music studio. There was another trumpet player there that I thought was really, really good. More of a free player, more of a Don Cherry type, but an excellent trumpet player and certainly way advanced to me. And I asked him where he went to school, and he said North Texas State. So I went back to New York. Creative Music Studio was upstate New York. Started studying with a few more people in the tradition. Started buying. I bought a book called 28 Great Trumpet Solos that had solos by Miles and Freddie Hubbard and Lee Morgan, and started buying all the records the solos were on. And, that was really my first exposure on my own to hearing all that kind of music, and, of course, was totally enamored by it. Went to North Texas State and found out that guy was the exception and not the rule there, that he was the only one like that there, and, thought I needed the education. I didn't want to be bouncing around anymore, so I stayed at North Texas State. I got a more inside education than I ever thought I would get, playing in big bands, which was not even an idea to me. But the school was great. It afforded, really all you need is one good teacher and a lot of time to practice. A few other good musicians, and at the very least, North Texas had that. And I would come home to New York on breaks and study with John McNeil, a great trumpet player, and Carmine Caruso, who was kind of like a brass guru back then, and get all the information I needed and go to Texas and practice.
So why did you pick the trumpet?
My family, though they might regret this now, from my mother's side of the family, from my grandmother down, thought all their children should have a well-rounded education, and that included piano lessons. So I started piano lessons when I was maybe 10 years old, and maybe by the time I was 12, I walked into the kitchen and announced to my parents that I wasn't taking piano lessons anymore. I was interfering with Little League and my other athletic endeavors, and it was a complete waste of time. And Scott Japlin's The Entertainer is just not my idea of, And they said, well, you have to play some instrument. And I said drums, because I was listening to Led Zeppelin, and drums sounded like the most fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And they said, absolutely not. I said bass. And, as an electric bass. And they said, no way. And the funny thing is, I don't remember the punchline. I don't know how we got on trumpet. All I can remember is after my first lesson, they sent me to the store to buy something, and I ran. And I think I said something like trumpet would maybe increase my lung capacity and I would be a better athlete or something like that. They tricked me or something. And then later on I realized I actually saw a childhood, not really a childhood friend, but somebody who was like a year older than me, but was my mother's best friend's kid, and he was taking trumpet lessons back then, and they had a trumpet teacher, so I guess all that was in place for them to easily get me started that way too.
Yeah.
So maybe that's how that happened.
When you were a kid, what did you dream of being when you grew up?
I think from early on I did dream of being a musician. It's funny, I remember reading a Sonny Rollins interview once, and they asked him, why musician, why saxophone? And he said, there was a girl on my street I really liked, and he's talking about when he was 12 years old or something. Really had a crush on her. She wouldn't give me the time of day. And I thought if I was going to be a musician, she'd like me. And I think it's something along that same line. There was some girl that wasn't that impressed with me, and I thought being a rock star would probably do it.
So not only are there love songs, there's musicians that have been fueled by love in the very beginning. So,
and what other motivation do you have when you're 10, unless you're a child prodigy?
Yeah, without a doubt. So obviously things have gone well. You're a professional musician, very esteemed, and over the years you've hopped on the stage with cats like Billy Harper, Cecil McBee, and all these others. What is it like to perform at that high level on such a regular basis all the time? Is it just ingrained in you now, or you still get the jitters? What's it like when you get on stage?
Well, never the jitters. Maybe, well, not lately. I don't know. I mean, Freddie Hubbard was like the scariest guy I've been on a stage with. I don't know how to explain it really. I mean, I was sort of helping him. I was sort of in a different kind of position. He was playing sort of with my group. I wrote arrangements for my group to play his music, and it was done, because he was, having trouble with his chops, and we were trying to create, like, a world where he can still, perform productively and, still present something on a high level. So it was more of a collaboration in that way. So it was like dealing with a different Freddie Hubbard. I don't know, sometimes we mythologize these guys so much they're actually separate from the person you deal with.
Yeah.
The Freddie Hubbard on records, or the Freddie Hubbard that I was scared to death of, to meet him, before we started this stuff. Well, I was certainly aware that was Freddie Hubbard. It wasn't as, scary, because I was contributing something to the mix that was important, maybe. I don't know how, and that's a lot of the situations I've been have been like that. I don't know, so it may take some of the edge off. I mean, I do, with the Cookers, I am painfully aware of the level of the people I'm dealing with sometimes, because basically anytime I think I make strides to get close, they show me how much more they have.
Yeah.
They're not doing it on purpose or anything, but I mean, that's just what I'm dealing with. And it's a dynamic I'm used to, I guess. So I guess I'm used to it. I mean, some days I get through the day okay, and some days I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, this is, I'm never unaware of it, let's say. But a lot of it, like I said, is partially muted by the fact that I'm bringing something else to the table that partially justifies my reason for being there.
Yeah.
And it's the least I can do, and it's probably the only thing I can do to, be there with those guys. It certainly helped me grow into something, but, it's the fact that I'm able to create these things that, it doesn't level the playing field, but, justifies my existence a little more. So I'm not just like some schmuck trying to walk on stage with some of the greatest musicians on earth and go, what are you doing? I belong here. You're like, yeah, right, kid, go, and I've brought a couple of people into the mix, sometimes as subs, and, they get it. I mean, it's a heavy bunch of guys. Coming from an era, of a bunch of heavy guys, more heavy guys, I'm painfully aware of it, but, I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have, it doesn't feel great every day, but I'd rather be in a position where I'm getting my ass kicked every day instead of where I'm Superman every day. This is like relationships. Some guys like to, idolize the woman they're with and always feel insignificant compared to them and, inferior and just, praise the ground they walk on. And some people like to dominate. I mean, it's a taste thing, I guess. I'm happier being challenged every day. Feel good every day, but, I have more of a fighting chance then.
This is my next question for you. Being a part of an outfit playing is one thing, but you're also a very adept arranger. You've arranged for Phil Woods and Vincent Herring and Antonio Hart. What is it like to be in that
record? I mean, the real arranging I've done is for Freddie Hubbard and the Cookers, and also this Wayne Shorter project I did. Doing the music of Wayne Shorter for like a 11-piece band. I mean, Phil Woods, Antonio Hart, Vincent, that was an alto legacy band. That was nice, too. I mean, that was a one-off record, Alto Summit, that we thought would be nice if, sort of just a straight-out blowing session, we would, do some decent, make it a little, maybe more complete record if we had some decent arrangements and stuff like that. But, yeah, the arranging thing, it came around. I mean, I didn't really study arranging in college. I never really had much of an interest of it, but it came out of necessity. I mean, it started with people knowing I was able to transcribe tunes off records. Some guys wanted, like, hey, I want to play this tune. Can you transcribe it for me? And then in the 90s, a lot of record dates were producer-driven. When everybody had money and everybody was making records, everybody wanted to do the music of so-and-so or the music of this or the music of that. And they were producer-driven records, and producers aren't musicians usually, and somebody needed to write out all the music. So they hired me.
Yeah.
David,
yeah.
write out all this music. We're fine. And then that turned into things like Alto Legacy, like, oh, we have 3 or 4 saxophones on this date. Maybe you should write an arrangement. Well, okay. So I wrote some arrangements. And at some point, and the Freddie Hubbard thing, the same thing, we decided the first record we did, which was, produced by Vincent Herring and Carl Allen, was the first record right after he was starting to have chop problems, and we all kind of sat and decided, like, maybe a larger ensemble would help buffer it, and we can make a better record this way. And we get some great arrangements. So let's hire Bob Minzer and Bob Belden, and, oh, David, yeah, you can do a couple too. And those kind of things are what piqued my interest on it. I liked arranging for that octet, and that's why I formed the Composers Octet, which in the end wound up playing with Freddie Hubbard a bit. It wasn't exactly my impetus at first, but doing all that stuff kind of created the interest. Partially, because and also because once you do a lot of work like that for other people, you go like, hey, really, wait, I can come up with an idea like this.
Yeah.
I could arrange it, and one I like,
Yeah.
I might as well do this.
So when you look back on your life of all the periods of creativity that you've been involved with, what period has been the most prolific?
I don't know, last week. Hopefully now. I mean, stuff runs in cycles, unless you're just a superstar, and working all the time and busy all the time. Unless you're one of the real prominent names in jazz, this stuff goes in cycles. Mm-hmm. I guess I can say I'm prolific every day in my living room, writing or practicing or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do recall some of the busiest periods of my career, which actually was like maybe 2 summers ago. I remember being very busy with like 2 or 3 different projects. I don't know, next week, hopefully. I imagine it's in my future, or I hope it's in my future. The Cookers are still going. I'm at my 2 bands. I'm getting ready. I've actually started the process of recording my Point of Departure group, which is my younger band. And we're going to finish that record this year. And like I said, we're getting ready to do the next Cookers record. My tour schedule might not be that busy this fall, but I'll be recording 2 CDs or preparing to record 2 CDs. There's always something else on the back burner.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's my future, but I don't know if prolific. I don't know what it really turns out being. Like I said, 2 summers ago, I remember touring a lot, and I remember like 3 or 4 projects sort of happening at once, and it was an incredibly busy summer and a lot of fun. But I don't know if I was ever really that much more prolific than any other time. I don't know, because, there's other factors involved. If I have a new CD out now, then everybody thinks I'm or 2 CDs out in a year, like last year, then the world thinks I'm prolific. If I just do a lot of tours and do a project that doesn't get off the ground, then I think I'm prolific, but nobody else. I don't know. The goal is always to be busier, if you're not one of those superstars. So, I'm just hoping the Cookers get some more work. I hope when I make this Point of Departure record, the world will embrace it a little bit so I can actually get a little work for that band.
Yeah.
Because my own personal recognition, I guess, with my own groups is certainly lagging behind this other stuff I do. And it would be nice to get that going. Ideally, the Cookers are amazing, but, one has to have a little pride in their own albums, too.
Yeah.
And hope one can get a little, I don't care about recognitions. I think music. I think things get tuned around. I don't really need recognition that much, except that's what I need to get gigs. So then I guess it's the only way to get a gig.
Sure.
And I think that kind of stuff is getting confused a lot in social media, where everybody's trumpeting this about themselves or trumpeting that for themselves, and it might have started out of a necessity, of thinking they need to get their name out there so they can work, or the goal. The Cookers are amazing, and nothing has probably helped me grow more as a musician than being around those guys for the last 7 years. Freddie Hubbard was pretty damn important too.
Yeah.
But also, my Point of Departure group, we play at least once a month in New York and do other gigs, and it's young guys, and the band is growing, and it appeals to a different audience, hopefully, and it'd be nice if, I don't know, a few people heard about it. Right now, we're working, like I said, we're working on that record, and we'll see.
Right on. Let me ask you this. You've been taught by some...
I'm prolific rehearsing with them all the time.
Yeah. So you've been taught by some really amazing musicians over the years. Who has taught you the most?
That's hard to say because things happen in different ways, and people also have different processes of doing it. And I think my first real quote-unquote jazz teacher, John McNeil, probably taught me more than anyone, just because he was able to kind of distill the language to something very clear to somebody very early.
Yeah.
Put you on the right track right away, which is a very good thing. But a lot of it is, just the work you do on your own. Once you're given a path or you have a clue as to what to do, it's really, what you do for yourself. I mean, Freddie Hubbard never really sat down and overtly showed me trumpet stuff, but he would always get a comment or two in, or he would have something to say about the way I phrase stuff, or, a little off-the-cuff comment might have more meaning than 2 years studying with somebody. So like I said, everybody's style is different. The guys in the Cookers, they lead by example. I mean, technically, I guess I'm the band leader, as absurd as that is. So they're, or we're a band of equals as far as being on the stage, but they're the ones who got a lot to teach me, but I'm the one who's like rehearsing the tunes and trying to get things tight. So it's a strange dynamic sometimes, where I get to, sort of rehearse guys that I have no right rehearsing. But that's the dynamic of the band. I wrote the arrangement or something, and trying to get the band, to be right. And they're good sports about it because they care about the music and want everything to be right too. But they will give me shit sometimes. Billy Harper will point out that I missed this or this, and or phrase this way, because it's his music. Billy Hart will, when we're walking off the stage after a gig, like, hey, you probably took one chorus too many on that tune, didn't you? And I'm like, yeah, I know. They're not telling me anything I don't know, but coming from them, like, yeah, we noticed that. So, a lot of it's a responsibility to yourself. I mean,
yeah.
A lot of it is having those guys around you to put your mindset in that frame of mind, like, oh, I better do this, I better do this. I won't be able to get away with this. I won't be able to get away. I mean, and that's, I think, the philosophy behind the Cookers in general is that the bar is raised so high. Nobody, everybody has to kind of bring their best, and that they come from that kind of era. They come from, playing with Miles Davis and Sonny Rollins and Art Blakey and Max Roach and Lee Morgan. I mean, I'd be insane if I didn't walk in there with that same attitude, like, oh, these guys are going to kill me. I better have my shit together. I better do this. I better be at the top of my game,
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
When you were really getting into jazz in the beginning, were there any particular albums that just floored you, that really kind of opened some curtains for you?
Well, there were some that I still look back that, got me in touch with my love for music. I won't go all the way back to the rock albums or the weird fusion records, but a lot of the fusion records got me on the right. The Mahavishnu Orchestra. Hearing, one of those records really helped get me in touch. A guy named David Sanchez was a fusion keyboard player. His records were like, had a really powerful impact. I mean, then, the avant-garde stuff, Cecil Taylor and Albert Ayler, actually. I mean, the first thing that attracted me to jazz and avant-garde jazz was the energy, because I was a rock and roll guy. So the guys that just, really, like Cecil Taylor, it was all that energy. And later on, as I developed more of a harmonic palette, say, then, that kind of music changed for me, or at least how I perceived it. But at the time, they meant a lot to me. The Cecil Taylor Band with Jimmy Lyons and this trumpet player named Ralphie Malik and Ronald Sean Jackson, I played drums. There's something called Live in the Black Forest or something like that. I played that to death, and Albert Ayler. And who else from that? And then the early jazz stuff. It's weird that I can't place that and I can place these other things. It's stuff that hits you in your childhood, doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I'm more in awe sometimes of meeting one of those weird avant-garde guys than I am dealing with like my real heroes now.
Yeah.
Because I guess I was an adult or something when I heard them. But a lot of I like Miles Davis. Certainly, My Funny Valentine was something, in the Plug Nichols stuff when that came out. Around Midnight, I think that's the first time I sat down and learned solos, were those Miles' solos on Round Midnight, the record Round Midnight. So Bye Bye Blackbird and Dear Old Stockholm and Tad's Delight. Wayne Shore's The All Seeing Eye was a lot, and Speak No Evil. And then from then it was like everything, like those Blue Note records, all the Joe Henderson records and Kenny Dorham records.
Yeah.
And the Miles Electric stuff still, a lot of people are getting, the Lost Quintet is getting a lot of press now because of, the set they put out a couple of years ago. But I was given cassettes of that stuff in college, and it just blew me away.
Yeah.
The Point of Departure band is sort of a nod to the energy that band had. But they were hard hitting.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Let me ask you this: what's the greatest thing about waking up every day?
I don't know. That I got a roof over my head. That I got enough sleep. Yeah, the music business is a rough business. I think any day where I can get right to music and not have to deal with some of the other, any day that music is the first priority and it's not life or the music industry at its worst or whatever. It's a battle to get to do what you want to do, but it's a battle worth fighting, certainly.
Why do you love jazz?
As I've explained to you, it was a pretty long journey to get to where I am now. So I don't know if this is an answer from the heart or from the brain or from the intellect part of it, but I've pretty much covered everything along the way, and I've arrived here, and I think that I arrived here for a reason. If my search is to find the music that has the most impact on me, that and also is the thing that I've chosen to play and express myself in this way after going through almost every kind of rock and fusion and world and everything else. And this is the conclusion I came to, so it must be something pretty good.
Yeah.
But the harmony, well, I guess it's like how I try to explain this music to everybody else. I get this, from people that I meet or whatever, I really want to like jazz, but I think I need to know more about it, or, they appeal to this, this intellect thing. They just don't have the this or the that to appreciate it or that. And some are, intimidated by that. And I tell them all the same thing. Look, any music has to grab you at a basic level. With the rhythm of it, the feel of it, the swing of it, the groove of it, whatever it is that draws you in, jazz should draw you in the same way. The difference with that jazz might have that a lot of other music might not have, or might not have as in spades as jazz does. It's if you want all that other stuff, it's there too. If you want advanced harmony or advanced rhythms or advanced this or complex this or complex that, all that's there too. But in the end, that basic thing has to draw you in. So when I'm playing music, the most infectious thing is the rhythm. If it's grooving, swinging, or if it's a groove thing or whatever. That's the base thing that attracts me to this music and makes me love it more than any other music I've played or listened to. And then I'm drawn into the tune I'm playing, or I'm drawn into who's ever solo, or whatever they're doing, then there's that. And, I've written rock tunes or whatever, it's just the most interesting stuff to me. It can be very advanced harmonically, and so my intellect as far as trying to grow as a musician, trying to do everything, that's covered, and it grooves, and And a lot of the bands are always this way of reckoning the two, and I think the best music that we've had in jazz has been a way to reconcile the two things, the intellect and the groove.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the fight between straight ahead and avant-garde even, or daring and inside or whatever, and and that tension. I think all the best music is created like that. All those classic blue notes or whatever, they always had, the feel is there. I mean, Alfred Lyon and Francis Wolff, if you read their letters to people, they always talk about the groove. And Freddie Hubbard used to talk about them, little German guys dancing in the studio. And, that was an important part of it. And, I think I've realized this once. I did a gig with Jerry Allen, was a trio and a tap dancer. And going in, I was like, a tap dancer, really? And then I realized that me and her could almost do anything. And then the tap dancer would come in and bring it all back down to earth and give the crowd something, the crowd-pleasing aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I think, all music has that. I mean, clearly people who want it to be all about intellect have that too, with, more, daring or avant-garde music or whatever. But most people are attracted to a rhythm, and so am I.
Yeah.
I like that. A good beat, a good groove is infectious, and that's what's going to draw people in, and it's what drew me in.
Yeah.
I'm not. There's no other rhythmic thing, swing thing. There's just nothing else that interests me like that. I mean, I still think this too. That actually, salsa music might be the best combination of everything because it's very complex rhythmically. Until the last few years when it also became more poppy, the music was very, very complex. The writing, the arrangements for the horns were very interesting. And you had a pretty boy singer up front that brought it to the world.
Yeah.
The singer is what got him, and the groove, and the other stuff was there too. So the musicians were playing on a level, but they're playing their pop music in a way. But it was very, very complex music, and I always thought that was very cool, and I always loved playing in salsa bands. And a compelling soloist, I guess, is our version of that, or something that might be a little more groove-orientated.
Yeah.
It seems like for me, as far as the perfect combination of what gets me off intellectually, as a musician, and what gets me off groove-wise as a musician, it's jazz.
So let me ask you this: you've had a long career up to this point. You're very far from being done. But if you look back and think, look back over your career, how would you want the world to remember what you've given to the world of jazz music?
The frustrated musician part of me, I think, would want to say that I wish the critics would look at my body of work and see if I don't deserve a little something for the body of work, not just the Cookers or Freddie Hubbard, but the New Jazz Composers Octet. I formed a composers collective for young composers before most people thought of that kind of thing. My own sextet for my own writing, and this Point of Departure band, which explores a lot of obscure music, let's say, and but again, it's more of that groove-orientated stuff where you're trying that fight between groove and complexity and all that. And then plus the Cookers, plus Freddie Hubbard, plus the Wayne Shorter, music Wayne Shorter big band. I hope I've consistently put out good work for quite some time now. So it'd be nice to see if some people in the industry looked at the body of work, and said, that, and also that you don't have to be like a quote unquote avant-garde musician to do a lot of very interesting things. Because that's most people who are attributed to like a wide range of projects are usually in that camp. Yeah. And as far as the world, I just, I remember watching a Richard Pryor documentary lately, and I think Barbara Walters told me, like, how would you like to be remembered? And it's like, well, I hope I put a smile, I put a smile on their face.
Yeah.
I hope they like the music, which one of my projects they picked out. I hope they liked it. I hope it's it's one of their favorite music, one of their favorite records, or it got them through a day. I mean, that's the other thing that's a joy playing with the old guys with, because when you ask me what I liked about jazz or whatever, what I didn't really cover because I wasn't there was jazz was an important part of a movement.
Mm-hmm.
The whole civil rights thing or whatever. Jazz was the music of a certain world we lived in for a while. It was the music that expressed what was going on in this world, and it doesn't seem to have that anymore.
Yeah.
And also, I guess people listen to music differently now. It's like when Freddie Hubbard, I'd be, would be after a gig with him, people would come up to me, man, I was this, I was that, and then I listened to this, and man, it really just changed my life, or it did this for me, or I got married to this, or I met my first this with this, and it just seemed to be of a higher importance. It was just woven into the fabric of the world more.
Yeah.
And the Cookers too. I mean, there's a history to this stuff now. And with Billy Harper and these guys. Oh man, I saw you with Art Blakey in 1964, and man, that really kind of changed my life. And I don't get that touring with the young guys.
Yeah.
And that's really special. I mean, I've gotten that playing on vacation music. I remember, I toured with this Haitian band, and we'd be in like Haiti or somewhere in the Caribbean, and being this big outdoor festival, and they'd grab a couple of women out of the crowd and bring them on stage, and they all knew like every note of every tune, anyway. They bring these women on stage, and they start playing a groove, and the women would start dancing, and then the groove would get more and more and more intense, and the women would, maybe fake it, but like pretend to have convulsions and start rolling on the floor. The music was so intense and so overwhelming, so it was a good show. It's nice to see those things, like how strong of an impact music could have on people. And like I said, Freddie especially, but the other guys as well. You can really see it by all the people who came up to him. It's Red Clay changed my life.
Yeah.
Man, when I heard Red Clay do this, I was doing this, and I was doing this, and I was, I proposed to my wife. It brings them back to a certain part of their life, or it defines that moment in their life, or something like that. And that's nice to see. I mean, I think most of us get into music for more purely selfish reasons, but it's nice to have that effect, certainly, and it's nice to reach that people. And that's another important lesson Freddie Hubbard hopefully taught the young guys and the band when we were all together. I mean, Freddie was like one of the most complex musicians we've ever seen, but he wrote tunes like Red Clay and Up Drum Spring, these things that really reached people, and and he knew how to put 5,000 people in the palm of his hand. He had, also, that's another thing. I mean, we don't have personalities like those guys.
Yeah.
Not just, I mean, those guys were larger than life, Miles and Freddie, and we still got Herbie Hancock, but they're like larger than life personalities and larger than life figures. The Cookers were part of that. The guys in the Cookers. Again, that was the high point of jazz, and any exposure I can get to that, and it's probably a beautiful thing. I mean, a lot of young guys will never have that, and the irony is they don't seem that interested in it anyway. They're doing their thing, and hey, I'm doing my thing. I'm like, okay, that's great.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, that was actually my last question. That was a great way to sum everything up. David, thank you for taking a little time and opening up with me. I really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over America, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to David for his music, his cool, and his honesty. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or you can always visit the neonjazz.blogspot.com for all things neon jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.